Okay, so I'm going to be demonstrating the bar model for multiplication word problems when using multiplicative comparing. So the first question I'm going to demonstrate this model with is there are 8 cows in barn number 1, but there are 5 times more cows in barn number 2. How many cows are in barn number 2 compared to barn number 1? So for this, you would have your 2 different colored Post-it notes, or you can use paper or the whiteboards. That's totally up to you. And so you're going to point out what the first number they give you in the problem is. So in this one, it says there are 8 cows in barn number 1. So you could underline the 8 if you wanted to, but then you would need to write it on your first color of paper. So we know that the first number is 8. And you can kind of stick that right there. So then the second number that you see in the word problem is 5. And it tells us there are 5 times more cows in barn number 2 than barn number 1. So what you would do is you'd want to alternate between the 2 different colors to show the bar. And it would look like this. So you're going to need to write the number 8 5 times using the Post-it notes, differentiating the color that you're using. So the first color would be this green I have. So we would say, we can move this up here. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's really tricky to have them all hang on there, and 5. So we can clearly see that this is what the bar is kind of going to look like, where you have the number that you started with on the top and the number that you're eventually going to end up with on the bottom. So what kids will do now is, okay, we know that there's 8 cows in barn number 1. This bottom bar will tell us how many cows are in barn number 2. So we're going to multiply 8 5 times to know how many cows are in barn number 2. So then we'll say, okay, 8 times 5 equals, and then they'll have a moment to solve, and then they'll get 40. So then the answer will be 40 cows using the bar there. So I have a second problem that we can do just to reiterate how to do this. And the second problem is this. There are 10 sharks in the reef at 8 a.m., but at 1 p.m. there are 4 times as many sharks. How many sharks are at the reef at 1 p.m. than at 8 a.m.? How many more sharks, are there at 1 p.m. than 8 p.m.? So the first number that we recognize is 10. So this will be using your colored paper, the first number that you write to go on top. So we'll write the number 10. And you don't have to stick it on the paper. Obviously, if there was like a board, I could stick it on there, but I'm just going to stick it on there for space purposes. So we have 10. And then the problem tells us that the second number that we're looking at is 4, because it says there are 10 sharks, but then there are 4 times as many sharks. This 4 times as many will also indicate to students that they will be multiplying. So that the next thing we're going to do is make a bar graph with 4 different bars on it, since that's the number that the problem is giving us. And like I said, if they underline these numbers beforehand, it'll be a lot easier and they'll know what numbers they're kind of doing. So we're going to write 10 4 times, differentiating the color of Post-it that they're using so that they can get that visual representation that it is different. So they'll have this visual representation showing them, okay, I need to multiply this number 4 times, and I can clearly see that. So after they have a moment to think, they'll say, okay, I have to multiply 10 4 times, which gets me how many? 40. So then there's 40 sharks at 1 p.m. compared to 10 sharks at 8 a.m. So that's how you use the bar model.